Hey guys, it's Kim here with Verily Fiber Fun. Thanks for joining me on this what fibers to blend together to create what types of fabrics video. That's a mouthful, so by the time this video goes out, it will have a better name than that. But this video is based off of a comment I received on a YouTube video, which I will pop up right here when we get to that in just a moment. Before we do, if you are new to the show, new to my channel, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss new videos as they come out. Did you know it helps if you breathe? And don't forget to leave your comments, questions, and suggestions in the comment section below. Please feel free to ask more questions for clarification on any of the sections that we go over today. So when we're discussing, here's the comment on the video. When we're discussing what fibers to blend together to create what types of fabrics, first we need to know the basics of what types of fibers do what. So we have three main categories of fiber types. We have wool or animal fibers. So we're just going to say animal fibers, plant fibers, and synthetic or man-made fibers. All right, so let's start with wool. There are four main categories of wool, and I'm going to put them here, just the basics, okay? So we have fine wools, down wools, long wools, and double coated. And that's just wool, not counting the camelids and angora and all of that stuff. So your fine wools, their characteristics are soft, elastic, they have lots of memory, felts very, very easily, and the fine wools are your weakest wools. They will break the most easily. Samples of such, or examples rather, are Merino, Rambouillet, Cormo, and Targhee. There's a million breeds, so I highly recommend you get a copy of the Fleece and Fiber Sourcebook or even the Pocket Edition, which I'll pop up here. And I will leave the information to the book in the show notes. I might pop a blurry picture up. It's the best I could find online of the Fleece and Fiber Sourcebook, and the author's name right down here. So you can get a copy of that. There's over 400 pages in the Fleece and Fiber Sourcebook, and it goes through all animal fibers, or almost all. So that's pretty incredible. Our second category of wool are the down breeds, and they tend to be the shorter stapled breeds, medium fineness, so they're not as soft as the fine wools. They're a lot more resilient, a lot stronger. They have a really well-defined crimp, usually a spiral type crimp, which gives it exceptional resiliency and elasticity. So, and they're also the least likely to felt. So they will resist felting, which makes them the most washable fabrics. And although Tunis is not listed as a down breed, I consider it a down breed. It does resist felting, and it doesn't mean it won't felt, because I have made it felt. It's very, very bouncy. It's got that elasticity and memory that you want in a down breed, and it's nice and strong. So I'm wearing my Tunis sweater that I just finished. It is the Moraine by Tin Can Knits, and I hand spun the Tunis in a woolen style for warmth, and this is a very warm sweater. So examples of some of the most common down type breeds: Clun Forest, Dorset Down, Shropshire, Suffolk, Hampshire, I cannot read my own handwriting, and Welsh Mountain, stuff like that. And then a lot of your heritage breeds also fit into that category, but not all of them. And then we have long wools, which are really long stapled. They're going to have a major tensile strength. They are the strongest of all the wools. The fibers are thicker, often less soft. The hand is how soft it feels, and the long wools can feel quite soft, like a BFL, blue-faced Leicester. So the Leicester long wools, BFL is probably the softest long wool there is. They tend to be very, very lustrous and silky, and they have plenty of drape, but with the wool characteristic that there is some memory to it. The long wools tend to resist water the most. So and that brings us into the double coated, but right before we get into those, examples of long wools are Coopworth, Cotswold, Border Leicester, Leicester long wools, Lincoln, Romney, all of those. I forgot to say that Cheviot is one of the really common wools that you'll find, especially with beginner kits, and that fits into the down or medium breed category. And I love Cheviot. I love the medium wools. They're probably my favorite, except for BFL. That's my top favorite. Okay, double coated wools. They have a long wool outer coat which sheds water, and then they have a downy undercoat that is very, very warm and soft. So you get 2 for 1 with a double coated wool. You get the warm, soft, bouncy, amazing downy undercoat, and you get the long, lustrous, durable outer wool. Some of the common breeds for double coated are Caracool, Icelandic, Navajo Churro, and Scottish Blackface. I know there's more out there. Some Shetland have double coated, and I believe some Jacob as well. Kind of depends on the particular flock and what they're being bred for. Okay, so that's all of the sheep breeds categories. Excuse me. So we have focus on softness, focus on memory and elasticity, a focus on drape and strength, and a combination of the two. Those are the 4 main categories of wool. Then we have silk, which is another animal fiber, protein fiber. Silk has some major tensile strength to it, but it doesn't hold up well to friction. So with rubbing, it'll wear out quicker than, say, bamboo. It is very shiny, incredibly drapey. It's elastic. Silk is one of the most elastic fibers with the most strength of any other fiber out there from the research I was able to do. So I would recommend you do some research yourself to double check these facts. And then we go into the camelids, which are things like alpaca and llama and camel. And I'm only going to touch on alpaca because that's the only one I have any sort of experience with. So alpaca is incredibly warm. It felts very easily. It has a lot of drape to it. And although it doesn't, like if you spill something on it, you have time to wipe it up before it soaks in. But if you're sweaty, it'll help to wick the moisture away, similar to wool, but it is a little bit more water resistant than something like the sweater I'm wearing right now, which is really cool to know. But alpaca is quite a lot warmer than wool. And it can be very fuzzy. It can make the yarn very fuzzy. And same sort of idea there of warmth and fuzziness is Angora, rabbit Angora, which is super, super soft. The fibers are really thin with a hollow core, and that hollow core traps heat, so that's what makes them so incredibly warm. Angora fiber gives your yarn a very nice halo, a lot of fuzz, depending on how much you blend in, and it has a very silky hand, so it's a very nice against the skin, even though it is quite hot. And then we have cashmere, which comes from a specific type of goats, So cashmere is super thin, and that makes it more breakable, more delicate than the fine wools. So it's not strong at all, but it is incredibly soft and warm and very, very light. So if you make a cashmere sweater using the exact same yardage as, say, a soft wool sweater, a merino sweater, the cashmere sweater is going to weigh a lot less, even though the yardage, the yarn thickness, and everything was the same. And then we have mohair, which comes from a different type of goat. It comes from, I believe, Angora goats. The fiber is long, lustrous, strong, resilient, and durable. A lot of people say if you want a strong sock yarn, mix mohair into your wool. And we will get into that in just a little bit. But that is the extent of the research I did on animal fibers. There's yak, there's, I think I've heard of beaver and possum, and there's all kinds of other fibers that I am not going to get into because A, they don't interest me, and B, it's not that much different from some of the other fibers. So, like, this is a basic, you know, and I'm trying not to go all day on this. So next we get into plant fibers, and my absolute favorite is bamboo. It is the strongest, most absorbent plant fiber as far as my research showed. I could be wrong, but it is incredibly absorbent and incredibly strong, and it's soft, and depending on the type of bamboo, you can get it in different grades, different finenesses, and it can be incredibly soft and silky, or it can feel a little bit more like nylon. It kind of depends on who did the processing and to what degree the processing was done. Ramie is similar to flax. I didn't even put flax on here. I don't know why. Ramie is made from nettles the way flax is made, the way linen is made from flax. So you have to ret the fibers, the plant stalks, let them dry, break them, pull out, you know, just the whole ordeal to make fiber out of a plant. That's what Ramie does, and I think rose as well. Ramie is incredibly lustrous. It's fine. It's got a flax-like texture. It prefers to be spun wet. Like flax, it's got that gumminess to it. When you wet it down, it kind of helps to glue the fibers together. It's very light and it's absorbent, so it's like most plant fibers, it's got a lot of drape to it. Rose fiber is silky, strong like silk. It isn't silk, but it might be an alternative to silk if you can't get it. It feels a lot like viscose bamboo. It's got a huge amount of drape and it's super absorbent. Tencel or lyocell, it's the same thing, is a wood pulp product. So what I understand is wood is turned into just a pulpy stuff. It's spun, the pulp is then spun into long thin strands, and that makes a soft, silky, absorbent, and strong wrinkle resistant fabric. So I have short stapled crimped lyocell, which is also tencel, but what I got was labeled as lyocell, and that is not going to provide a lot of strength to anything that I spin because it is a art texture add-in sort of idea. So a lot of it depends on what your fiber type is. And that's the end of the research I did on plant fibers. Again, this kind of gives the basic. I know you can get banana fiber and pineapple fiber, and a lot of those are going to be similar to bamboo. And then you have sea cell, which has its own properties. Most of the plant fibers are antibacterial, not cotton, but most plant fibers are antibacterial, and that makes them super wonderful. They don't absorb body odor caused by bacteria, just like wool doesn't, and alpaca, and a lot of other things. But cotton does absorb bacteria that causes body odor, so cotton does hold odor. So I don't like cotton that much. I never knew why until I did all the research. Then we have man-made fibers, and I'm talking 100% petroleum-based man-made fibers. And not all of them are petroleum-based, but I'm just kind of making a big group here. So you have all different types of nylon, including sparkles, which Fire Star is a type of nylon, faux cashmere, faux angora, faux mohair. Any of the faux fibers are nylon. And nylon, as it is, can be either super, super fine and soft or not quite as fine. And when you purchase, the store you buy it from should give a, I think it's called a denier. It's similar to, it disappeared. It's similar to the micron count. There we go. For wool. So it gives you an idea of the thickness of the fibers and how soft it's going to be. It's not denier. It's a different word. Anyway, Angelina is a little different. It's more of a plasticky fiber, and it is very sparkly. It doesn't have any benefits except it's fun, and it's pretty. You have two types of Angelina, heat bondable and non-heat bondable. The heat bondable, you can sort of glue it onto something with heat. The non-heat bondable, you can't, and the sparkle fibers do not felt, but you can always lay a piece of wool over them and felt the wool in place, and it'll hold your sparkles. So that is the man-made fibers. And now we're going to get into blends and what blends I recommend for different projects. Now that we know all the fibers that we just talked about very briefly, we know what their main properties are, and we're able to then deduce what fibers to blend with what fibers to create the finished product we're looking for. So I have two different suggested blends for strength. Socks and warp yarn for weaving. And you can take this and do whatever you want with it. This is all my recommendations. Other people will have their own recommendations, but it's based off my experience, what I've done, what I like and don't like, all of that. And a lot of it depends on how you spin and how you create your final product. Socks are more durable if they are knit very, very densely, and I always spin them to be extra strong. So, but it helps to start with a strong product. So for socks, I do mainly a down breed for elasticity and durability. And then I add in long wool or mohair for strength. Now, if I don't have long wool or mohair, or I want to do something different, I'll do bamboo for strength, or silk, because silk is very, very strong. Now, remember, it doesn't hold up to abrasion. So I don't focus on the silk. Usually I'll blend silk and bamboo in with my wool. And I have done like this right here. The sock yarn that I'm spinning now, it's a blend of Perendale, which is one of the medium breeds or down breeds. And it's got silk and bamboo mixed in with it. This is my Neptune spin. And this will make a very strong yarn. Even though I only 3-plied it, I didn't do anything special to it. And I'm knitting it up into a very nice fabric here. So this will hopefully be a very durable socks. I don't want them getting holes in them every time I turn around. Sick and tired of that happening. So I do, with my current sock experiments, I'm doing 80% down wool and 20% strength add-ins, like long wool or silk or bamboo or a combination of those. But I start with 80% down wool. Now you can change that however you want. I highly recommend you do your research. Anyway, for warp yarns, for your weaving, you want your warp yarns, they run from the front to the back of the loom. They're under a huge amount of tension. So you need something with a lot of tensile strength. You need to make sure you did your spinning very, very carefully to make them nice and strong. I recommend something very similar to the sock blend, maybe more add-ins, or you can even add in some soft wool, some fine wool into it. If you want something drapey, I would put more plant fiber or silk into it. But remember that your weft yarn can be pretty much anything you want it to be. Your warp yarn is what's going to be under tension and abrasion as you're moving things around with the loom. So that's as far as I'm going to go with that. I'm fairly new to weaving, so it's not 100%. Like, I know you can just do 3-ply yarn and it'll work great on the loom. Anything that's spun and plied strongly will hold up well to the loom. For outerwear clothing yarns, like say a jacket or a cardigan, something warm, something that's not going to be right up against your skin a whole lot, I would focus more on strength and durability than softness, but you still want some softness so that what little bit is touching skin isn't causing a lot of aggravation and itchiness. So I would do a mixture of medium wool and long wool, maybe some mohair, maybe some alpaca if you want some. Alpaca's pretty strong, so if you want strength and warmth, alpaca, but you don't want anything super fuzzy if you're going to be working outdoors or putting your clothing through a lot of wear and tear. So the less fuzz, the longer it'll hold up with the least amount of pilling. For next to skin garments, and you'll have to play around with the percentages for that and just make something that you like the consistency of. For next to skin garments, I would do a super soft wool, maybe 60% and up. And then you can blend in Angora, alpaca, or mohair for warmth and fuzziness and strength. Bamboo or any plant fiber to kind of cool it down a bit. Silk for drape and shine. And of course you can put nylon in anything, especially the sparkles, because that'll just make everything more fancy. Make you feel like you're the queen of the world or the king of the world or whatever. So it all depends on if you're looking for warmth or if you're looking for drape or if you're looking for maximum coolness and functionality while still using wool, because wool is great for regulating your body temperature. So I really like the idea of mixing wool and bamboo or wool and flax or something like that to create a like summer tank top or something. And I choose wool in there because bamboo by itself will grow. If you knit a tank top that has no seams in it except, at the shoulder, by the end of the day, your underarm hole is going to reach your waist. So you either need to put seams in it if it's super, super drapey and will grow, or you need to blend it with something that has memory like wool. That's just an FYI. We're almost done here. I have a couple of other little tidbits. So for a hat, like a stocking hat or a beanie, I would focus on warmth, then memory and elasticity, and softness. So maybe you want a fuzzy hat because that'll keep your head, your ears really, really warm in the cold. So you definitely want some Angora in there. If you happen to really like alpaca and you have a lot of really soft alpaca, alpaca is one of those fibers that kind of depends on which animal it comes from, whether it's scratchy or not. I'm not a big fan of alpaca. So I would do like 40% fine wool for the soft, 40% of the down wool maybe for elasticity, and you can move these numbers around as you want, and then 20% of something else like Angora or alpaca or silk or anything like that, just to add extra fuzz and warmth to your hat. I would keep the focus on softer stuff because it's going to be touching your face. You don't want that to be scratchy. And a lot of that depends on what your skin sensitivity is as well. So for a shawl or a scarf where you want a lot of drape, whether you're weaving, knitting, or crocheting, I am mostly a knitter. I do crochet and I do weave, but I'm mostly a knitter. So I'm a little biased towards knitting. But for something super drapey that isn't necessarily going to be right up against your skin, now with a scarf, you would want it more soft if it's going to be up against your skin. But something like a shawl maybe doesn't need that. So for softness and drape, I would do alpaca or BFL. I would add in silk for luxury and drape and shine. One of the plant fibers, rose or bamboo or something like that. And super fine nylon if you need. The nylon is just if you have it and you want to use it. For maximum drape and the least amount of softness, I would put some long wool in there. If you want fuzz, I would add mohair or angora. Alpacas also tends to run on the fuzzy side, so keep that in mind. The more fuzz in your yarn, the less stitch definition you're going to have in your finished product. And that doesn't even mention the fact that if you want open stitches like lace, 2-ply is better. If you want major stitch definition, you want a 3-ply or a 4-ply. It makes more round yarn. Cables stand out better. They pop with a round yarn. That was an extra. And the last section of what I would recommend for a blend is pants or skirt. And I'm thinking like, looks like dress pants or flowy skirt. I would do 50% long wool, 10% silk, 10% bamboo, and maybe 30% of a down wool. Because you also want memory and you want that elasticity where you can move comfortably in your clothes. And I'm also thinking at this point of fabric that is woven and sewn as well as knitting. But if you, I have 100% wool skirt that is got plenty of memory to it, not a huge amount of drape, and it's perfect and it's wonderful and I love it. So kind of depends on what you're looking for. I highly recommend that you do some experimenting, maybe make a sweater that's drapey, and one that is super bouncy, and kind of think about how you like the different fabrics, or maybe make a vest instead of a sweater. Experiment with some different sock blends and see how you like the yarn and the fabric. Make a few different hats, like just experiment. And but I highly recommend. I've made a headband out of 100% alpaca and it grew like crazy. So alpaca is going to grow. If you're going to make 100% alpaca, anything, it needs seams in it to give it structure if it's a garment. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that answered all of your questions. Like I said near the beginning of this video, any other questions you have, please drop them in the comments below and I will get back with you right away. Love you guys. I appreciate you very much, and I hope you found this to be as educational as I did when I was doing the research. Bye.